Hello and good day to you. So it's Corey here with the Art Archaeologist channel, and I had just done a video called Wire Wrapped Charm and Pendant Tutorial, and I did real basic wire wrapping in that. I showed you how to do this noose wrap wire for all of your pendant work, and today I wanted to show you a few more additional techniques. So let's start with this one. This one is a wire wrapped bead, and it's got a lot of wire rolled around the ends of it, plus it's got additional beads added to it. So I want to show you how to do that one today. And then this noose wrap, you will see this again today in this video because I want to show you how to do all this extra wire around your pendant. This is just a little addition to that tutorial. Okay, and then this one is just a little seashell bead with a lot of extra wire around the edges, and I have a couple things out here to show you. You can take it to such a cool level just by adding some wire to your beads. You can take these really pretty tribal bone beads and do this and just add extra wire. And then I have some of these seashell beads here, and you can just take it through and not have any wire showing on the bead but have extra wire. This is a pretty good example. Extra wire around your ends. And then you can do this style. Let me zoom you in real tight. And you can put just the wire with no extra beads around it like that. Now today we're going to go ahead and add beads to it because you get that you can do both. Now this is a milky quartz crystal shard, and this is I highly recommend doing this wire wrapping here with a tiny shard. Now you can do it with a bigger bead, you really can. It's going to take a lot more wire, and your work is going to show up a lot more, which I like messy wire work personally, but not everybody likes that. So if you want tighter, more concise work, I would just say use a smaller crystal shard. So let's talk about wire for a sec. Now 22 gauge is my favorite for this kind of wire wrapping work. This is 24 here. For some reason I have trouble finding 22 gauge in the colors I want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and use 24 gauge today. It's a little thinner than I like. It makes for a more delicate eye hole on your beadwork, but it totally works, no problem, okay? And then here's some 20 gauge wire. Now the higher the number, the smaller, the thinner the wire. So the 20 gauge is quite a bit thicker than the 24 gauge. Now the 20 gauge is, you can use it for this kind of work, but it's gonna look, if you're trying to do a noose wrap with a bunch of extra wire like on this here, it is going to be way too bulky for this kind of work. 24 is ideal for this. 22 is ideal for the others, okay? It can sound a little confusing, but once you use a couple different sizes of wire, you'll understand, you'll know what you want. So let me get all my tools together and I'll be right back. Okay, so we'll start off with this shard. Now I've got 3 sets of pliers I use for this kind of wrapping. I use my wire pliers, and these are to ensure that you don't mar your wire. They have these plastic heads on them. And then these are my round nose pliers. I talk a lot about all these, so I'm not going to go deep into detail over these. And then these are sawtooth needle nose pliers with a cutter. So what I'm going to do, and you want quite a bit of wire for this, because we're going to wrap quite a bit of it around this crystal. And I really do not measure stuff, but I think I'm going to do about 1.5 feet of wire. Now what you want to do is go ahead and put your wire through the hole, and you want to even up your ends. So we'll go like that. My ends are a little uneven, as I'm going to show you here, but you know what? It's fine. It's totally fine. And you're not going to get it perfect ever anyway. So now I like to wrap this way away from me. So I want to make sure that my upper wire is away from me, pointing that way. Now, it's important doing it the other way because you want your bead to be able to move, but doing it this way, you want it tight as you can get it. So I'm pushing that wire close to the pendant, to the shard, and I'm putting these ends out very tight. There's not any play there, you see? And then you just want to twist. You don't want to be sitting next to anybody when you're doing this. The wires are just too long. So I usually like to wrap this, and you want to watch your eyes. When I'm doing this kind of wire work, I like to wear my glasses just to protect. You don't want to get poked, and it can happen very easily. So I've got to do a noose wrap on this. Plus I need a little extra room, and you want to make your noose wrap holes like this one. You want to see how big that is. You want it big enough to be able to easily put a jump ring through it, or a few jump rings in case you're doing a bunch of charms together. Okay, so I'm twisting a good inch at least on here, and then you want to have just at least 1/4 inch down here to wrap your wire around. Okay, so now I just go ahead and kind of pull those together, and then I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I want a pretty big hole. So you see, these are designed to make different size jump rings. So I'm going to go further up on the shaft of this. And this 24 gauge wire is so thin that you can really mess with it. So you see how I have that twisted on top of itself, if I can get it in frame. And I've got a little extra twist. You really don't want that extra twist. I went a little too far, okay? But if I sit here and measure all day, I'll never get anything wrapped. So what I'll do is just unwrap it a little. And then I've got my length of wire here down here too, and then the bead. So I like to take my plastic coated pliers and hold all this together. And I'm just going to back off that twist up to where I'm holding it right there. And I'm going to take one wire and push it out of the way. I'm going to take the other wire and I'm going to wrap. And I'm just going to keep wrapping. I want to get it as equal as I can from where I start down to the bead, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going over the bead. I like real messy. I try to keep it even at first. And my goal is to get all the way down to the hole in this crystal shard. So, and then I want to come back with the wire back up so I can hide the end a bit, okay? So just go as evenly as you can. And then I'm going to start just ever so gently cutting back up the shard. Okay? And then it ended right there, which I don't want. I kind of want it to end up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back it off a little, and I'm going to cut it across, all the way across there, because it's very important to hide that end. So now what I'm going to do, see that end sticking out there? I'm going to grab a hold of it with my sawtooth, and I'm just going to spin, spin, spin this until I can get it all the way around. I don't like to cut wire, especially because I want this whole thing to be nice and chunky. You see how it's, now I've got it, let me zoom in for a sec. Come on. Okay, so I've got this wrapped, and then this part's kind of thin, so I'm going to take advantage and bulk this up with this other wire. I just like a chunky look. I think it looks more balanced too, because, and this is why I don't do this to big giant crystals, because if you have a big wide crystal, then you're going to have all this bulk down here, and you're going to have to compensate for it up here to make it look good. But it is a personal preference thing, but it's something to keep in mind. So now I'm going to take this wire, and I'm really focusing on this part here. I want to bulk that up. I've already got a nice wrap around my crystals, so I'm going to be a little bit more concerned with bulking this up this time. And, you know, you'll get a vibe. You'll do a few of these and you'll know exactly where you want what. So then we're just going to twist. I like to just spin, spin, spin till I can't do it with my fingers anymore. And then I'm going to do the same thing. Spin, spin, spin. These will mar your wire. These sawtooth needle nose, see how they have the grip inside there? They do make these flat, and I do have flat. I just don't care if my wire is marred, but if you're using coated wire, a plastic coated colored wire, or even a metal coated wire, like a painted wire, this will scratch the finish. So I generally stick to just gold, copper type wires. I don't do a lot of the different colors because I cannot seem to keep them from being marred up. So my solution is to not use them. Kind of limiting. But okay, so there you go. You've got this gorgeous, gorgeous wire wrapped crystal shard, and you can turn these out so fast. Once you make a couple, you'll be an expert. Okay, so there's that one. Now let's go ahead and move on to this wire wrap. You definitely want to use a smaller gauge for this too. 22 gauge is ideal for this, and we'll go ahead and use the copper this time. I'm not going to put any beads on this, just wire wrapping. So I've chosen to do just a little stone bead here. And this is a pretty easy wrap to do. Okay, so I'm just using this pretty little stone bead here, and I've decided to use copper this time. And my copper wire this time is measuring 11 inches, okay? And I never measure. I always eyeball stuff, but I've also been doing this for a long time. So if you want to measure at first, it won't take you long to get it happening for you. I went to zoom in and turned the camera off. Okay, so I've got even ends of wire on both sides of this bead. Now, I'm not really concerned with the bead placement so much as I'm using it as a gauge. So I'm going to grab my wire right here, move this bead off, and I'm going to keep my place and grab my needle nose, my round nose, excuse me, pliers, and I'm going to take that wire and bend it all the way around. Now I've got this and I'm kind of stuck, you see? So I'm going to switch it to the other loop so that I can go around again. What ideally, and you just kind of got to switch it up a little bit. I might be doing it harder than it needs to be. Then I want to take this shorter end. You're going to have a shorter end and a longer end. And I want to take this and twist these around each other while it's on my needle nose pliers, my round nose. I keep saying the wrong thing. So now I've got this wrapped around here twice, just to strengthen it up. I like when I'm using that thinner wire, I want to beef it up a little. So since I have this on here now, I'm just going to bump it up the tiniest bit so that I can work. And I'm going to take this shorter end and I'm just going to wrap it until it's gone. I'm going to do it pretty tight, close up to that loop, okay? And I can never get these perfect, and I never want to. I really do like a very messy, kind of ragamuffin, not so together look. So now I'm to the point where I've got this tiny little pokey tail. I'm going to take this off. Here's what I've got so far. I've got this long tail here, and then I've got this. So next I'm going to take my plastic ended pliers and I'm going to do what I always do, just hold this better. I'm going to spin this around until that's tucked, and you want to make sure these are tucked very tight, especially if you're selling or giving as gifts. The last thing I want is my client to be injured. Okay, so now you have this pretty little end. This is, I'm sure there's other ways of doing this. This is just the way I've found to do this, and I'm pretty happy with doing it this way. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to give myself about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to try to give myself 1/4 of an inch of wire. So I'm going to line this up because I want all this wire wrapped there. So now I need to make my loop again, and I want it just as big, so I'm going all the way to the end of these round nose. And I better go around, and then when I get stopped, you can spin it like that to get around. But there comes a point where you have to just come out and back in. And I'm really wanting to get this as tight as I can, twice around completely. Now, this is a tiny bit. If this is a tiny bit long, just simply wrap it that way to pull up some of that slack that you've got here, okay? Just pull the bead itself around your pliers. And then you can pull this side back. Now your bead's going to swim around for a second. Go ahead and take these out. This is how I find it to be easiest. And then grab these again. And then just start wrapping, and start at the back and try to go even at first. It gives you a nice base to go even. And just keep wrapping that. Also, the thing about 24 gauge wire is you'll be holding it and it'll bend on you because it's a really thin gauge. So just keep that in mind. And same thing. Look at, now you got this beautiful charm. You can add beads to this too. If you want to have some beautiful little seed beads or anything you want on the ends, you'll just wrap up to that bead instead of the big ones. So I would recommend when you're first learning to just do it one big bead like this until you get a feel for it. And then you can start adding smaller stuff. It's definitely harder to work. I got it down in there. Okay, and then just feel it. So there's the second way. So look at what you've accomplished so far. This is, I want you to really see up close. See, it's not a perfect look, and I love that. I really love the messiness of doing it like this. And then here is this gorgeous wire wrapped of that. I just want to show you again. I think it came out so pretty. Okay, so I've gone ahead and started this next bead. I went ahead and did the double loop like we just did before, and now I'm going to take my plastic headed pliers and hold that down, and I'm just going to twist these two a couple times. I don't want a whole lot of space, just 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch in there, okay? And then you want to take your longer end and go ahead and string your bead onto your long end here. And then the way I'm going to do this is, since I've got so much length over here, probably too much. By the way, this is about 18 to 20 inches in length, this wire. Then I've got this, and I've got plenty of wire here to bead with and to put wrap around the other end. Okay, so I've got these little teeny tiny seed beads, and I've only got a few of them. And I'm putting a couple of these on. You want these beads to be small in relation to the bead that you're doing. So I've got these two little gold ones, and see how nice let me pull you in. See how nice those lay on the nice big stone bead there. There's some focus. Now that you've got that done, you want to secure this right away. So you're going to hold everything down and make sure that your bead is secure up to that twist mark on that end. Go ahead and wrap this a couple of times around this bead to secure it, around this wire, excuse me, okay? And then what I'm going to do, I've got way too much wire for this project. A foot would probably have been plenty for this, okay? So now I'm going to come in with my round nose, and now I've got this end around. So I'm going to go ahead and twist this wire, this extra long one, around here, and then I'm going to pull it out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and it's just so much easier to use these. I'm going to wrap this end. This is where it gets a little tricky. It can be very tricky doing this. I've got it wrapped a little bit, but I'm going to go ahead now, and you just take this bead, this wire, I keep saying bead when I mean wire. Now I only wrapped it a couple times around right here, so I am going to keep wrapping some of this to get this nice and bulky. I've got plenty of wire to do it, I might as well use it. And the goal I'm getting at is to get as tight into this bead as I can get. See that there? And then I'm going to lay this across the bead on the back side. Okay, that's better. I want a lot of bulk. So you really could go the full 18 inches and get yourself a lot of really nice bulk on your bead here. Okay, so I've got more bulk here than I do here, but I've got this left over to fix that. So go ahead and do the same thing, just spin and clamp. Oh, since I've got this nice big chunky bead, I can hold it instead of using the pliers. I've mentioned before, my hands do cramp up on me doing this kind of work, and I'm going to do it as absolute much as I possibly can in life, but I also have to try to find ways to make it so that I can do it. And these pliers right here are really my solution. They are fabulous. Okay, same thing, tuck, tuck, tuck. And same thing with this. Now these kind of float around on here, which I like that. And these are a little bit bigger, but they all do it the way I do it. And I like that. Now you could, I'm sure there's probably a way you could do it to keep them from floating around. But it's okay with me if they float around. So, you know, again, you're in personal preference. So do a couple of these, and before you know it, you're going to be just blasting through them, and you'll have the most beautiful collection of charms really, really fast. Okay, so here's what we've accomplished today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I really want you to give this a try. I think you'll love it so much, and these are make the most special gifts because you made them with your own hands. Real quick again, I've got this old nut container, and I've got some scrap wire here. This piece of scrap is really long, so I'm just going to go ahead and do another bead with it, but I've got this little piece that I can't do a whole lot with. And it's really wise to keep something like this around so that when you're doing your wire working, you can just pop the top off and get rid of your scraps right away so that everybody's safe. And I say that all the time too. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great day.